Welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. I'm Victoria Gallagher, your host. Have you been attempting to use law of attraction or hypnosis to attract financial abundance, a soulmate, or career success? Would you like to be happy, motivated, and successful? Have better health, enjoy more fulfilling relationships, overcome struggle, and gain mastery over your life? Then join me on this amazing self-help podcast where you'll unleash the power of your mind. I'll be sharing 20 years of wisdom and techniques of hypnotherapy, law of attraction, visualization, meditation, personal growth, positive affirmations, and other effective methods to help you tap into the great power which resides in your mind and become the best version of yourself. Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode number 56. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction coach and #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction, Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps. So be sure to stop by HipTalk.com and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course. And for our listeners who found us through the Power of Your Mind podcast, you can receive 35% off your first order of hypnosis downloads when you apply the code podcast to your shopping cart. Also, be sure to watch for and download our latest HypnoCloud app in the iTunes store. So today, I have the privilege of interviewing a hypnotherapist that I've known about pretty much since the beginning of my career over 20 years ago. In fact, his book, Finding True Magic, sat on my lap through many hypnosis sessions. Jack Elias, a clinical hypnotherapist in private practice since 1988. Jack is the founder and director of the Institute for Therapeutic Learning, a licensed vocational school in Seattle, training and certifying personal clinical hypnotherapists for 31 years. Jack presents a unique synthesis of Eastern and Western perspectives on the nature of consciousness and communication, teaching simple yet powerful techniques for achieving one's highest personal and professional goals. For over 50 years, Jack has studied Eastern meditation, philosophy, and psychology with masters such as Shunryu Suzuki Roshi and Chuyang Trungpa Rinpoche. Jack offers dynamic experiential workshops and seminars, and his Finding True Magic courses are eligible for credit at various universities for CEUs. He also serves an international clientele in his private practice, Lucid Heart Therapy, and life coaching. Jack has the skill and artistry to help clients anywhere in the world by phone or Skype to achieve transformational changes equal to in-person sessions. He helps everyone achieve their personal relationship and professional goals. Today, Jack is going to share some of his insights about breath work to harness the power of your mind. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Hi. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor and a privilege to host you on the Power of Your Mind podcast.
Thank you.
So what do you mean by the mind is inherently hypnotic? You had mentioned that in your book. The mind is, I love that saying, the mind is inherently hypnotic.
Yeah. So the mind, just saying the mind is an example of one aspect of the hypnotic nature of language. So we think we have a mind. That's an idea. And, when we learn English, we learn that nouns are things. So anytime you say a noun, there's a suggestion there that you're relating to a thing. But actually, there is no mind. There is no thing. There's just a flow of experience, thoughts, images, emotions, sensations. It's just a flow. There's no thing. So that in itself is one of the hypnotic aspects, is that nouns can be useful. Talking about a chair or a car or, chopsticks, ordering a meal, that can be fine. Where it's a problem is in our relating with ourselves and others, because everybody thinks about relationships. Mm-hmm. Relationship is a noun. There is no such thing as a relationship. But when we have a noun and we create philosophies around that idea, and it can get very complex, and which means we get more and more focused on relationship, the nature of relationship, what's relationship. And actually, people can do that in such a way that they're virtually paying no attention to how they're actually relating moment by moment. So you can't get anywhere with improving your experience of relating if you're focusing on ideas and not actually noticing what you're doing and what is motivating you to do what you do. So that's one example of how the mind and language are inherently hypnotic.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So we basically made up these constructs of these invisible nouns, these invisible things, and we bring the meaning to it, and we're limited basically by whatever it is that we're making up that thing inherently or it means.
Yeah, in fact, the noun limitation and thinking I'm limited, that's just a hypnotic suggestion. You can only be limited by your definition of what limitation is. Like for most of us, we have lots of indoctrination, which is a synonym for hypnotic conditioning, but in a negative way, negative hypnotic conditioning. We have a lot of conditioning that we are limited and there's things we can't do. Mm-hmm. But what's really happening there, unless you're talking about something simply absurd, like you can't leap tall buildings in a single bound, but I'm talking about more practical things. Like there's something you want to do, but you've been told you can't do it, you're not up to it or whatever. Those are just negative hypnotic judgments. Those are negative hypnotic suggestions that blind us to the fact that the experience of being alive is the experience of moving along moment by moment on multiple dovetailing learning curves.
Yes.
So if you're on a learning curve, you're taking information, you're digesting it, and then you get some information that you're not able to easily digest. If you have a program coming in, a hypnotic programming coming in that says, well, you're not doing this just like this, like Bill is, so you're not up to it, you're limited. That's not true. Stay true with respect to the nature of your own ability to learn and keep learning. So in that sense, there's the term limitation is meaningless.
Yes.
Because you're short-circuiting the fact that you are being alive is being on a constant learning curve, and just keep learning without judging how you're doing. Then there's no limitation.
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and it forces you, when you don't have these hard and fast rules about these particular words like mind, like limitation, like hypnosis, like any of the words that we haphazardly just use, and we think we know what we're saying. We think we know what we mean when we say that, and we expect other people to know what we mean when we say that. And so it keeps you like awake and aware to experience rather than things.
Rather than falling asleep in the thinking.
Yes.
Okay, so hard and fast beliefs or standards, that's just hypnotic suggestions that you've invested a lot of energy in and made them appear to be solid to you, like they're the truth of the universe, as opposed to just a limiting idea that we made up or somebody made up and imposed upon you.
I'm loving this.
So language is inherently hypnotic. It's very simple, like that might sound, ooh, boy, that sounds difficult to understand, but it's very simple. Words only have meaning in association to our knowledge, our prior experience, other learnings we've had. So when you say a word to me, like if you say I'm depressed, if I go, oh yeah, that's terrible, I know what that's like, you as the client have just hypnotized me, because I'm going into my memory of being depressed, thinking we're connected. But unless I inquire carefully into what you mean by the word depression, what associations are in the basket for you that has the label depression on it, I don't actually know what's happening to you. So if you just say I'm depressed and I don't question, I'm referring to my depression. I'm not referring to yours. I'm not connected to you at all. So when I train people to be hypnotherapists, one of the main things I do throughout the class is catch them and remind them when they're assuming they know what someone else is talking about just because they have a meaning for that word. But it can mean same word can mean entirely different things to different people. So one of the main things you do is you question.
Yes.
So that you can actually understand what they're experiencing.
Yes. Do you ever find people get a little resistant though when you do question them? Like, well, don't you know what that means? No.
Because I can just tell them, if I know what it means to me, I don't know what it means to you.
Yeah.
You have to tell me, otherwise I don't know what you're talking about. Well, then they're oh yeah, well I want you to know what I'm talking about. I'm paying you a lot of money, so
yes,
I want you to know what I'm talking about.
Yes, definitely. No, that it really makes a lot of sense, and it really, to me, it's saying that no two experiences are exactly alike, and in order to really help that person, you have to understand it from their perspective, whatever that word means to them.
Yeah.
May be an entirely different thing, and we're going to go in and try and fix something that doesn't actually work for them.
Yeah. And it's not even so much just the meaning, it's that you need to understand how they sequence their experience, their interpretation with their experience, moment by moment, to build up a trance state of whatever their suffering is, or depression or anger or whatever. Compulsion is, everything is activity. There are, thing, that's another hypnotic noun. There are no things. There's literally no things. And that's easier for us to understand now because we know scientifically about quantum physics. We know it's been proven there are no things. It's just energy fluctuating in different vibrations. So like the chair, the car, those are not things. In the ordinary course of life, it's fine to relate to the thingness of things. Again, the problem is when we misapply thingness in relating. Because that makes us short circuit our connection to the actual flow of relating, because we go into hypnotic trances about things. Like a main thing is my opinion of who you are. That's my trance. That's not you. If I see you today and say, oh, there's Victoria, and then tomorrow I say, oh yeah, there's Victoria. You may have made a dramatic change and I don't even notice, because I go immediately into my hypnotic image of you and don't even notice the change.
It's so true. It is so true because I'm a different person than I was yesterday. And
it's happening. There is no thingness to any of us. We are a constant flow, but we can become hypnotically absorbed in our idea of who we are and numb ourselves to the fact that we're a living, moving being, and then develop an idea, oh, I'm just boring me, I'm not interested in anything, nothing ever happens to me. That's a hypnotic creation of creating hypnotic filters so that you actually filter out all kinds of alive experiences because you have opinions that they're not acceptable.
This makes so much sense to me, and I'm going into my own trance by saying that, why don't other people talk about this? And this conversation being a this isn't necessarily even a this, right?
Well, it's okay. The thing about nouns is they're kind of shorthand, because you could say, this is very interesting things I'm learning right now, moment by moment. But, it's just good conversation. It's shorthand.
Yeah, it really is.
As long as you stay flexible and open and don't clamp down on an idea.
Yeah. And I think, as hypnotherapists, this really gives a good tool, a good way to stay present and stay aware. And you really, this idea just really wakes you up to have to really pay attention to what the person is saying. More than probably, if you're having one of those days and you've seen 8 clients, by the end of the that eighth client, you might just, oh yeah, you're depressed. Okay, let's talk about that. But
you're thinking about dinner the whole time.
So what would you say in a session with clients? What would you say is the number one most important thing that needs to get accomplished?
Oh, excellent. I will answer that, but first I want to say one more thing about language being inherently hypnotic and how nouns and labels can create a big problem. One of the biggest problems is the word hypnosis. I'm sure you and many of the hypnotists you work with, you say, I'm a hypnotist, and people go, ooh, and make you cluck like a chicken. Or in my classes, invariably, students go, well, what if I can't hypnotize them? And I say, well, fortunately for you, what you're learning in this class is that people are always already hypnotized, so you can forget that. It's not about hypnotizing them. It's about recognizing their own activity of consciousness, how they're generating their own limiting hypnotic states, their own limiting beliefs about who they are and what's possible for them. And, sometimes they say, well, gee, that sounds pretty sophisticated. Can your clients, will they understand? They understand all the time. Clients come in and say, oh, I have this problem. I've been to several hypnotists. Much didn't happen. I didn't really get hypnotized. I don't know if you can hypnotize me. And I say, too late. I say, your problem is a hypnotic state. And then they go, oh yeah. And they're completely energized and encouraged to keep going because they realize, of course, the problem is a hypnotic state. It doesn't exist as a solid, independent thing somewhere. Their mind is creating it. So they're already doing hypnosis. They just don't realize they're a master hypnotist, and so they've been using their hypnotic abilities in unskillful ways to create needless suffering. And then they feel, wow, okay, let's go.
I think it was actually you that mentioned that we're actually dehypnotizing them.
Yes, what I'm doing is
out of trance.
Dehypnotizing people. I say, now that you're here, I'll tell you the real thing. We're actually doing dehypnosis. But I can't advertise that because somebody sees an advertisement for dehypnosis and they go, well, I don't need that.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, because of what they're making up about it. They need to come and learn the truth. Well,
develop the clarity about how consciousness works and how to relate to language so that you can stay clear and creative with it instead of having it take possession of you. One more thing. When people will come in during class, like maybe they've been, if I'm doing a weekend format, between weekends, they've tried to practice on people, and they'll say, well, I asked people if I could hypnotize them, and they went, oh. And I said, look, just forget that word. Mm-hmm. You're not, how about this? So you have the experience now of someone saying, you say, would you like to be hypnotized? And they go, oh, no. How about this? What do you think their response would be if you said, I'm learning how to help people enter enhanced learning and enhanced healing states. Would you like to experience that?
If you find value in this personal growth related material, I strongly recommend that you sign up for your $1 trial to my Personal Growth Club. Just head on over to personalgrowthclub.com and get a whole month of premium Personal Growth Club video training materials, meditations. You also get 6 free hypnosis sessions that are valued at over $174, all for this trial of just $1. Even if you cancel, you can keep the 6 hypnosis sessions. That's my gift to you, and that's how confident I am that you are going to love Personal Growth Club. Go to personalgrowthclub.com and start your $1 1-month trial today. Yes, of course.
So I don't do hypnosis. I don't teach hypnosis. What I do with clients and what I teach my students is how to generate enhanced learning and enhanced healing states.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like
Isn't
that.
that good?
Well, yeah, it really is. Well, it's similar to people get caught up in the word visualization.
Yes.
And they say, I don't know how to visualize.
Right.
And I said, well, you don't have to visualize. Just make up a story and explain it to me. And instead of explaining it to me out loud, explain it to me in your mind and tell me how you go about doing that.
Excellent. Yeah.
And then they're like, oh yeah, I can imagine.
Right. Yeah, everybody can do it. It's just, again, they have a fixed idea about what it is. Their actual experience doesn't fit in that, so they reject their actual experience because of their allegiance to the fixed idea and say, well, I can't do it.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. I mean, this is high level stuff, but it's so simple.
It's the simplest thing. Einstein said, the best solution is the simplest solution that still works. Mm-hmm. So that's what I always shoot for, is to teach my students and work with my clients to recognize the simplest solution that actually works. And all the time within 20 minutes, I have people going, just kind of enjoying their state. And then invariably they say, it can't be this simple. Mm-hmm. And then you have to work to encourage them to keep it, because people have conditioning that if it's not hard, it's not real, it's not going to last. So that's a big challenge, is to get people to really relax and receive the good news moment by moment in their life, that being alive is fundamentally simple if you don't interfere with the given process of being alive with all of this negative hypnotic activity of consciousness that you've been indoctrinated into doing.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so easy to latch on to these made up meanings and labels of things. And so it just seems like you can keep yourself out of trance, out of hypnosis by rejecting some of the ideas of that means this, and nothing means anything.
It's all arbitrary. And here's another funny example is, I'm sure you've encountered people very concerned about who's hypnotizable. Lots of classes teach about hypnotizability scales and how to test for that. Mm-hmm. I just taught, since everyone's in hypnosis all the time, I tell my students, you don't need to bother with any of it. Mm-mm. And again, returning from between weekends, a student came in, they were very upset, and they said, I'd put on poster, in a coffee shop advertising for volunteer students, and this guy came in with this big manila envelope, and he plopped it on my desk, and I said, what's that? And he said, I've been in a research study, and I'm certified unhypnotizable. I didn't know what to do. What would you do? And I said, what would I do? Well, what I would do if someone came in like that and said, plopped that on my desk and said, I'm certified unhypnotizable, I'd say, well, just because you can't be hypnotized doesn't mean you're stupid. Sit down. What are they going to say? No, I'm certified stupid.
And I bet he sat right down.
Yeah. The best definitions for
accepted that suggestion.
That word, the best way to define hypnosis is several very simple ones. And so a couple of them are in the book. My Finding True Magic, little plug there. Hypnosis is simply the communication of ideas. So if you say you're unhypnotizable, you're saying, I can't learn. Which is why I said, well, you're not stupid. You can learn. Sit down.
Yes.
So that it's just the communication of ideas. And we want to make sure we understand how to communicate healing, liberating ideas. Because everything is a communication of ideas. It's all hypnosis. So hypnosis is a communication of ideas.
So I was almost tempted to say to the subconscious mind. So being though that the mind is this made up idea, how do you go about ever defining there being ideas that are, a little bit more a way of being, a little bit more constant, like, those that might be in their subconscious, or do you talk about that?
Yeah, I try to help people understand that those are labels, that there is no thing, but it's a label. It's like a finger pointing at certain dynamics of activity. Like there's a certain level of dynamic activity that we easily are aware of that we label conscious mind. There's other activity that we're not so easily aware of that we then label subconscious mind. But it's not a thing. It's just a way of talking about what you can easily access.
Okay.
Or what is difficult for you to access.
Okay.
It's much better to understand that consciousness is a constant, seamless dynamic than getting caught up in all these boxes, subconscious, superconscious, unconscious, And I know there's a lot of prestige in those because like Freud has a lot of prestige, Jung has a lot of prestige, these are important ideas. Well, they're not unless you can use them in a way that liberates you.
Yes,
most
definitely.
People use it to create a burden of like, my subconscious mind is full of terrible stuff. No, it doesn't even exist. It's just a flow of, you learn to be interested in paying attention to a flow of negative thoughts, but you don't have to.
Right. Well, it can be just as simple as 5 minutes ago, I was thinking about this, and that flow of thought is no longer in my awareness.
Right.
And so that's technically subconscious now.
If you can retrieve it, you're retrieving it from the so-called subconscious.
Got it. Okay. That really makes a lot of sense.
A similar label for subconscious is shadow. A lot of people talk about the shadow, but they personify it. They anthropomorphize it like, ooh, the shadow. There is no thing called the shadow. It's just a metaphor for information that's outside of consciousness. Like right now, you're looking at your screen, looking at me, and I'm looking at you. In your shadow is the bed and picture behind you. But it's not. It's in my consciousness. It's in your shadow, and likewise, whatever is behind me is in my shadow, and you. But it's not in the shadow for you. It's just what data is in consciousness or not. And some things in the shadow are easily retrievable. Like you could just turn around and see your bed, and now it's not in the shadow anymore. But if I asked you the square root of 6,742, that's quote unquote farther deeper into the shadow. You'd have to do some work probably with pen and paper to figure that out.
Right.
But it's not a thing.
Right. Now, before people start making up meanings, I'm not in my bedroom. This is a futon.
Okay. That was my projection of my hypnosis.
Right. But I probably need to, I don't know.
No, that's good now. I see.
It
Yeah,
up a
it's
little
a
bit.
nice looking little futon there.
Yeah.
I'm in my office.
So, well, that is, this is so mind blowing and mind opening. Really interesting, really interesting topic here. And, just dehypnotizing and meaning these words, getting the meaning out of these words, the labels out of these words. So thank you for clearing a lot of that up, because I think just that one point alone can help so many people, hypnotists as well as just, everyday people. That was one of the things, just even on the basis of relationships. I mean, well, everything ultimately is always, this always kind of comes down to a relationship, whether it's relationship with yourself, relationship with your significant other, or people, or your clients. You can just relate to people in a much more real way.
Yeah, if you're not getting hypnotized by a lot of ideas. Like, in my experience doing this for 32 years, I've had lots of experienced people come and train with me, a lot more experienced than me. And before I clearly understood this, I thought, oh, they're going to be bored. They're going to know all this already. Oh, my God. That never happened. What I found in my life is very skilled hypnotherapists, NLP practitioners with thousands of hours of training, and they never encountered the notion that they're in hypnosis all the time, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah,
all the difference in the world. I had, in my very first year, I had a guy come who I was like scared of because I knew he was been a hypnotist for 40 years.
Anyone we know, or
I don't even remember his name. He was from California, but on the first break, he came up to me with tears in his eyes, and he said, "I've been looking for this my whole life."
Oh, wow, that must have felt
very
wonderful.
Rare. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have encountered these very rare wisdom teachings. And I remember your question. I did this huge segue, but your question was, "What do I do?" Forget how exactly you said it, but what do I try to do with clients?
Yeah, what's the most important thing?
The most important thing is to dissolve confusion. Confusion, everything is confusion. The mentality is confusion. Now, people might say, oh yeah, I'm confused. I don't like being confused. Confusion. But people don't look at the word. People don't inquire. Everything I do is based on inquiring, and it's fun. If you look at confusion, you have con, which means with. Fusion means pour together. So you get confusion anytime you pour things together that don't go together.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And I teach a course on the 13 types of confusion that create all human suffering. But the main one, all the others come out of the main one. So I'll tell you the main one to answer your question. The root confusion is confusing being, your actual being, the worthiness of your being, the integrity of your being, your right to stay connected to and fully experience with full self-respect your being, versus activity. They're absolutely separate. Nothing you think or say or do can diminish your being. Nothing anyone else thinks or says or does can diminish their being. But the only reason people come, I don't care what they say their problem is, the root dynamic of their problem is always that they have confused the worth of their being with their performance.
So confusing.
So that's what I work with. I separate
being with doing, ultimately.
There's nothing wrong with you. It's impossible for there to be anything wrong with you. But if you've been hypnotized, and most of these powerful hypnotic trances are done in childhood.
Oh, I can imagine.
In parenting. Like, the irony is...
You're a bad boy.
Yeah. You spilled your milk again, you bad boy.
You're stupid.
You're so loud. I hate you. All of the, what you say or do determines your value, whether or not I'm going to love you. And when you're a child, your parents are like God, so they're like giving you pronouncements of universal laws. So you get totally conviction that your being is a function of your behavior and what people think of you. It's not. That's the root confusion. I don't care what people think their problem is, insomnia, weight loss, can't stop some addiction, whatever it is, it's because this is at the root of their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think your being is not worthy and not free because of experiences you've had in the realm of thinking, saying, speaking, and doing, one of the main ways you block yourself is with the notion you're unworthy. It's like you're unworthy and it's dangerous to look at what you're doing. Well, if you don't look at what you're actually doing, you can't change it. If I admit that, then everybody will know I'm a bad person, so I can't admit that. I'm just going to be guilty about it. I'm not going to actually look at it and analyze it, different perspectives on it, see if there's different kind of meanings than what I think. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to be guilty.
But the more unaware you are of it, the more it's running you.
If you're guilty, you just keep doing it because that stops you from learning. How many times, you may know this, or you could agree this possibility, you have parents, angry parents saying, I've told you 10,000 times you'd never listen. No, they were listening every time. But you have to understand, you weren't delivering the one message you thought you were delivering about information about how to correct the behavior. The main message was your rage. And so all of that little child's attention and learning ability went into how do I survive the rage? And they totally missed the correction to the activity, which is why they don't change it. Mm-hmm. But the rageful person, not understanding the nature of their own consciousness and what they're communicating, they build up a whole story. You disrespect me. I've told you this and you don't do it. No. You tell them in such a way that their mind is frozen in fear, they can't possibly take in the information.
And that goes back to the NLP presupposition that the communication is the response.
Yeah, the NLP, that's a formulation of what we're talking about. It predates by thousands of years, the NLP statement. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it does.
The reason I say that is because, there's a lot of branding pizzazz in NLP. People actually think that they thought of all this stuff for the first time.
Right.
They didn't.
No.
Wisdom is ancient and perennial. It's just they've packaged it in many ways that are very useful, other ways that are useful, and a lot of sales too. Mm-hmm. But it's important to understand that wisdom is perennial. And what does that mean? One thing it means is that it's all in here. All the wisdom you need is in your own being. If you stop rejecting your being because you've been taught you're not allowed to connect your being because you did this, this, and this, so you're unworthy and your being is bad, well, then that cuts you off from connecting with your inner wisdom.
So we can connect to all this information just by connecting with our own being.
Yeah. And in terms of hypnotic processes, which if it's good, it's good theater, like accessing inner guide or accessing higher self. That's doing theatrical devices with theatrical language to help people disengage from this and experience their being. And then, ahas arise naturally because they're all in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Another way that misperceive in this way is people always think it's a two-step process. I have to get rid of the bad and then create the good. No. The good is always present. You get rid of the bad, immediately the good is there. So relax. What if I can't become a good person? You're already a good person. Stop interfering with it. It's like the logic would be as if on a cloudy day, which we have a lot of these in Seattle, is it's so thick, cloudy day, we're going to have to create a new sun. It's like that. Your purity of being, complete, full intelligence with all the wisdom of humanity is that radiant sun. It's just a confused thinking that's the clouds covering you. You part the clouds, it's all right there.
Hello, this is Victoria Gallagher. I hope you're enjoying listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. As a way of thanking you for listening, I'd like to offer you a one-time discount of 35% off your first order at hiptalk.com. Just go to hiptalk.com and enter the code podcast in the discount code area in your cart, and you'll receive 35% off your first order. Thank you so much for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. That is brilliant. You have such a wonderful way of putting things that you just get it. And I really love hearing that, because I've always felt that no matter what the person, who they are, and everybody in the world, I believe at the heart of them, even if they've done really bad things, they're inherently good.
Pure being, yeah.
So that really...
the irony is, the logic, the social logic is if people do bad things, you have to punish them.
Mm-hmm.
Feel bad. Again, that blocks their learning ability because you're attacking them. So they can't learn better ways.
That you're hypnotizing them even more.
Making it worse. You're making it worse. So the only way, the best way, and really the essential element that's needed is to have a loving connection to your own heart, because that's where your intelligence is. So if you want somebody to learn something, you want to help them connect to their own sense of goodness, because then their ability to learn will be very powerful and able to do it. I had a guy come to me once, and he did. This guy gave me came in with a big thing of manila envelope, and I said, "What's this?" And he says, "This is all my court records, so that I've already been caught, convicted, and served time as a pedophile."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay. So I don't have to call anybody. Why are you here?" And he says, "Well, I've been in these programs, recidivism programs. They're designed to make sure they don't reoffend." But he said, "I'm sensing this building urge to do it." And he had enough connection to his good heart that he didn't want to just go with it. But he knew the program wasn't working, so he sought me out. I spent an hour and a half with him, very close, kind of like this close, talking to him about this thing, deconstructing every level of concept he had about being a bad person because of what he did. And I made it very clear, you have a pure heart. The thing you did is horrible. You're better than that. You never do it again. When the urge comes up, you see it for what it is, and you connect with your good heart, and you go the other way.
Mm.
For an hour and a half, that's just very general.
Mm-hmm.
I did it very specifically with his mind and how it was configured for the hour and a half. Objection after objection, misunderstanding after misunderstanding. He left feeling great. I never saw him again for a long time. Many months later, someone called me for a session, and as you probably do as well, he said, "How'd you find out about me?" And she said, "My bishop told me about you."
Mm.
I said, "Bishop? I don't know any bishops." "The bishop? Well, how is it? And she said, "Well, it's my Mormon bishop." I said, "Your Mormon bishop? I really don't know any Mormon bishop." Said, why did he send you to me? And she said, "Well, all I know is he said that he sent this person to you, and in one session with you, they changed more than they did in 5 years of therapy." And he was talking about the pedophile.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible. That is incredible.
And then about 6 months later, the pedophile came back in, completely upright, open. He just had a couple of little things he needed tweaked. We tweaked them, never saw him again.
That is amazing.
That happens all the time with this kind of wisdom. You can do it too.
Yeah, that is amazing. Great work. Great work.
It's so fun and so rewarding. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So how do you go about, deconstructing these, this confusion?
Well, First is to understand the structure of it, which is being, the person is perceiving one thing when there's actually two. So you have to help them separate. I'll give you a very classic example. I'm sure you've run into this, where you're helping people kind of examine their past, and then they get to a point they don't really want to see it because it means they have to see the bad things their parents did, and they have this underlying allegiance that they think, if I admit this, if I really see this and feel this, I'll have to hate them, and they don't want to hate them, so they have a block. That's because they're fusing their parents' being with their behavior, which means if I see the terrible behavior for what it is, they're terrible.
Yes.
Say, no, you can love them, recognize with compassion they were very confused, and love them, and call a spade in terms of what they said or did, that was mean and stupid and hurtful. Never do it again. You're better than that. So you don't end up like a typical thing is people will criticize somebody's activity and then they'll attack the person. Like, you did this terrible thing, you dumb shit. So that's a technical term. And instead of going, that's a terrible thing, you're better than that. You have a good heart. You're better than that. It's so simple, but it's revolutionary.
It really is. It really is. And so many times too, on the other side, if somebody points something out to you that you did wrong, you even if they don't attach any labels to that, but they just point out your behavior, oh my God, your ego, and that's probably a made up, but let's just say, your ego just kind of goes nuts because you're attached, you're doing it to yourself. You're attaching, they must think I'm a bad person, or they must think I'm an idiot, or they must think, blah, blah. And we constantly do that. Yeah,
as opposed to having the clarity and conviction, I'm a good person, I did a stupid thing, I did an idiotic thing. When you recognize that your goodness is a given, nothing can take it away, then you fearlessly engage activities you did that are stupid or even harmful or whatever. You're fearless about it. And you feel remorse as opposed to your ego structure freaking out. Because your ego structure, that's just the false persona you learn to create. It's a bundle of hypnotic suggestions of who you are, but it's not really who you are. And it's full of fear, needs constant reassurance, which is why if somebody says bad about you, you freak out, because you think there's that fusion there, and you believe that this idea of self is who you are. But you're not your idea of who you are. Who you are can't be conceived of.
Yes. I just want to dip into this for like a minute, because I don't want to get too deep into into what I'm just going to say, what this made me think of. But what it makes me think of, because I've just refused ever to label myself as any one particular political party or any one particular religion or anyone, I don't generalize myself even as a woman. I've just always really
kind of news for you. I've got news for you.
There's definitely, there's something, but
I understand
of what our roles are and that kind of thing, what we're meant to. So, I've just, and people are like, oh, you need to pick a side and stuff like that. But it's like, to me, it's all hypnosis, because the more you follow a particular group or religion or political party or whatever, it's like, well, they think like this, so I must need to think like that. And, and it's not that black or white.
No. So this is great. You're talking about a level of hypnosis, as you said, these various kinds of indoctrination, whether it's political or religious or family or whatever, it's indoctrination, ideas of who we are, as opposed to staying aware of what we actually are. So, but then we have a hypnosis about that makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Which is what you said your friends say, well, you have to pick a side. that kind of mentality, if you have to pick a side and take a stand, doesn't understand that thought, you don't have to fight with deluded thoughts. They're not solid things. It's like if you were in a room that was all walls,
Mm-hmm.
it would be totally dark. But the walls have a function. They have a function in keeping out the elements and creating structure and boundary. So there is an upside to walls.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't use them skillfully, like you forget to put in a window, then you've created a problem with something that has a lot of good aspects. So when you put in a window, now you get the same keeping out of the elements, you get the same structure, you get the same boundary, but it's transparent, so it lets in the light from the sun, from the outside, and that's a tremendous advantage.
Yes.
It's the same with thoughts. Deluded thoughts are opaque, like walls.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that is the only alternative, then you think you have to fight them as if, oh, this room is totally dark, we have to smash the wall to let some light in. No. Thoughts are transparent. And the transparency is like, oh, what does that mean, they're transparent? It means this: have a sense of humor. If you have a sense of humor, you're making thinking transparent. I'll give you a very easy example. If someone, a stranger in a bar, bumps into you, let's say, let's make it men, that's more typical. Somebody walks into a bar and bumps into a man and says, stop slouching, you idiot, and they get into a fight. Same bar, same guy slouching at the bar. Guy comes in and bumps into him, says the same thing, only they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
They laugh, they hug. Same words. In the first example, the words were opaque, didn't let in heart light. Second, the words were transparent because they had a loving relationship. No problem saying those words. So you don't have to struggle so hard to not be in this camp or that camp. Be willing to enter in any camp in a playful way.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm with Republicans, I enjoy being a Republican because I pace and lead and able, because we're all really just good-hearted human beings. So I'm willing to take their point of view temporarily to make a human connection. There's no need to fight.
Exactly. I've always felt
all the thinking, all the doctrines, you make them all transparent, which means you can play with them. And I don't mean disrespectfully play with them. I mean, you realize no thought form, no dogma can actually shut off your heart energy.
Right. Yeah. And you don't have to be afraid just to listen, to have a conversation, to be able to communicate with people, because you don't have to be, your thoughts, if they're transparent, then, they can be colored with, other ideas, and it's okay.
The unfortunate prevalent hypnotic suggestion that people buy into, they don't even realize it's there, is in order to be a strong Republican, I have to shut my heart down. In order to be a strong Catholic, I have to shut my heart down, like to Protestants or to Democrats. You don't have to shut your heart down ever.
Ever.
It never helps. But again, that's what's happening here. This means you have to shut your heart down, have to step away from your pure being, have to reject it.
I have shut my heart down to cilantro, though, I will say.
No. You cannot like it and also smile at it, because you can choose not to eat it. You don't have to hate it in order not to eat it.
Right.
I'm so happy you're here. Many people love you. Go have fun with them.
Just a little lighthearted joke.
Yeah.
So what is the easiest way that people can accomplish what it is that they really want to get out of life?
The best way is to, as thoroughly as possible, understand your true nature. Because again, everything is in here. All the wisdom is in here, plus all the actual most suitable desires and courses of action to take are in here. As opposed to over here in activity and indoctrination, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, you have to make $1 million. That's all painful delusion. If you rest, if you practice resting in your being, you'll have natural, effortless inspiration. Remember, the simplest thing is the best thing. When you open and rest in your being, everything is an effortless inspiration. And you'll, not only is it an inspiration about the goal, but it guides you moment by moment what to do to accomplish the goal. Mm-hmm. So the best way to stay with that, remember, you don't have to recreate the sun, just have to get the clouds out of it. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to, oh my God, how do I do that? It's a done deal. You just have to stop interfering with it. What I'm about to say is very easy to say. It's very challenging for humanity. The solution is never follow a fear-based thought. Mm. If you never follow a fear-based thought, automatically the effortless, inspiring thought is flowing. Because all that a fear, it doesn't matter the content of a fear-based thought. The activity, the effect of following a fear-based thought is that you clamp down and reject that flow of inspiration. If you don't, it comes forth. So very simple. Never follow a fear-based thought.
Wow, that's very wise. Very wise.
And simple.
Yeah, it is. Simple, but we confuse that word simple with easy sometimes.
No, it's easy.
Yeah. Is it easy?
It's easy. We make it hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember, I said effortless.
Yes.
Being genuinely yourself and genuinely inspired and in the flow of joyful embodiment is effortless. Mm-hmm. We have been taught to interfere with it. So that's the effort. Interfering is the effort.
That's so true. It's like it's habitual.
Yeah.
It's just so we just need to recognize those thoughts for what they are. They're just thoughts.
Well, this is the nature of them. We have been when we're blocking, it's because we have been taught, hypnotized, convinced, indoctrinated that activity in the realm of thinking and feeling and doing and what people think and everything determines our worth. When you realize none of that determines your worth, you just relax. Mm-hmm. And you keep doing and saying things, but you're doing it playfully because you realize your being is not at stake. So you're no longer, you undo the defective learning you got at home and in school. You unlearn all the heavy indoctrination, don't ever make a mistake. People can shame you and mock you if you make a mistake. Mistakes are bad. That's totally upside down. Mistakes are just how you learn. It's a good thing. It's a gift.
Yeah, we are going to make mistakes.
Mistakes don't diminish your being. They're in the realm of activity. So it's not, if you understand that, it's not, anytime you think it's hard, anytime you're struggling, take the message from the struggle or that sense of it being hard and recognize, oh, I'm thinking this is hard. Oh, I'm struggling. I'm on the wrong track. And just immediately let it go as best you can. And remember, there is no struggle required. So right. If I'm struggling, I'm in this when I could be here. So figure out how to separate the two. And then go forward joyfully. So
if we're not following our fear-based thoughts, then would that mean
automatically, effortlessly being moved by joyful thinking?
Right. We're following our authenticity.
You're not following it. It's carrying you along.
Okay.
It's so manifesting you. It's manifesting you.
We're just being.
You're not separate from it.
Right. Just being. Just being. Right. That makes sense.
And being, but not, that doesn't mean laying on the couch eating bonbons. Being in the midst of, like, one of the understandings of the nature of a master, like say a supreme martial arts, a genuine master of martial arts, they can defeat 20 people at the same time, all this incredibly powerful, speedy, skillful movement, but their inner state is absolutely still. Absolutely still inside is the requirement for mastery outside. Absolute inner stillness means no trace of fearful thinking. Mm.
And we can get there. We can do that.
You are there. You're there.
We are there.
That's what we are. We are that inner stillness. It's like a pond, and we are habituated to going like this with a stick and going, oh, why is it so muddied and so turmoil? It's because if you stop with the stick, it'll just naturally become serene and clear.
That is great. That is great. Well, this has been like one of my favorite interviews. And
great.
Yes, definitely. So enlightening. And I never even imagined 20 years ago when I was reading your book and doing the sessions with my clients that we'd be having an interview together 20 years later. Just, never even, I didn't even know I was going to be doing this. So you never know. But I definitely want to let our listeners know that Jack is offering a free gift for you, my audience. The listeners can subscribe to your free newsletter and receive your free stress relief MP3. And don't we all need to let go of a little bit of stress in our lives? And you can go to the show notes. Will be easier to find this link when you just go to the show notes. But the newsletter is going to be found at http://eepurl.com/BGW9MB. And so you can receive his free stress relief MP3. And also you can go to visit Jack's website to find more about him at findingtruemagic.com, as well as his YouTube channel where you can find out more information, youtube.com/Jack Elias. And finally, you can read all about Jack on his blog, jackelias.com/blog.
And I'm doing trainings in London this year and in Seattle, and I have private practice, and happy if any of you want to investigate that. I also have an online course.
Ooh.
So you can find out about all that on my website.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. When are your trainings in London and Seattle?
In Seattle, this is my 32nd annual summer intensive. It's 17 days straight, starts July 11th.
Ooh, okay.
And then the intensive in London, which is the first time, it's now GHR accredited in London by the GHR. And it's the 17-day intensive, and I think the starting date is September 20th. But all that information is available on the website.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Your Mind podcast. And for our listeners who listened in, thank you so much for listening. And be sure to rate and review Power of Your Mind podcast and tune in next week. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. And once again, be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast if not already. We can be found as Hip Talk on all our social media accounts. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course at hiptalk.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast, and you'll be instantly notified the moment the next podcast becomes available. Also, please be sure to leave a rating and a review to tell us how you're enjoying these episodes, and that way you're making a contribution toward others getting to share in this valuable information. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast, brought to you by HipTalk.com, Personal Growth Club, and HypnoCloud apps available at iTunes.